Welcome to This Explainer. Imagine this for a second. You wake up tomorrow morning to find that human biology has just quietly stepped into a completely new era overnight. An era where sleep is, well, totally unnecessary. Today, we're going to explore exactly how this seemingly impossible shift would completely dismantle and rebuild human civilization. Let's dive right in.
So what if that heavy, invisible force pulling us all to bed just vanished? Imagine every single person on Earth suddenly being handed 8 extra hours every single day. Honestly, it sounds like the ultimate cheat code for life. No more agonizing choices between getting enough rest and chasing your ambitions. We'd magically have the time for absolutely both.
You can imagine the immediate reaction, right? Pure, euphoric celebration. As humanity reclaims all those stolen hours, social media would absolutely explode. We'd see workers building up lucrative side hustles overnight, and exhausted parents thrilled to finally get uninterrupted family time. Students would realize they have hours to study for better grades, though, let's be real, they'd probably just end up gaming a lot more. The whole planet would feel like it had just been handed this incredible magical gift.
Right out of the gate, our culture would go through a massive seismic shift. The very concepts of morning and night would just lose their traditional meaning entirely. Your day becomes this one continuous stream of usable time. Cities would glow and buzz with life at literally all hours. Cafes would be packed at 3 a.m., and eventually the phrase, "get some sleep," would start to sound ancient. It'd become this poetic, quirky historical artifact, kind of like talking about churning your own butter.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. We might have magically deleted the biological need for sleep, but we definitely didn't erase the limits of human attention. So what starts out as this liberating open stream of time quickly mutates. Because every hour can be used, every single hour becomes a demand. Friends assume you're always reachable. Clients expect emails answered in minutes. That culture of rest, it mutates into an endless, inescapable expectation of productivity.
And at a systemic level, that pressure just compounds. Think about our global civilization. We're used to collectively pausing every single night. But now, we transform into this hyper-efficient machine that never, ever stops. Manufacturing plants just run continuously without worrying about worker exhaustion, transportation flows without a single interruption, hospitals, tech firms, they'd see massive productivity surges because those forced biological breaks are just a thing of the past. Now, while the economy would initially see this unprecedented, massive surge, a pretty dark side emerges fast. Sure, 24/7 global markets create immense wealth, but they also unleash infinite corporate demands. This abundance of time actually creates a dangerous new divide in society. Those with money and discipline can turn those extra hours into empires, right? But people without those resources, they'd be left drowning in exhaustion, just trying to survive in an economy that literally never closes its doors.
And this shift hits childhood just as hard. Right now, growing up and going to school are fundamentally structured around play, rest, and gradual maturation. But without sleep, we trade that gentle, paced development for an always-on system. Kids would be thrust into an environment of constant stimulation, endless screen time, and nonstop pressure to be productive. We'd likely end up producing a generation of kids who are remarkably sharper, sure, but fundamentally far more anxious.
Then think about what happens behind closed doors in our personal lives. Having more time for love inevitably means having more time for obsessive arguments. Without sleep, human emotions just pile up. Every disappointment stays incredibly vivid. Every hurt lingers longer. Our relationships would be severely tested because humanity would never again get to experience that profound, built-in mercy of just forgetting a little bit overnight. You can't just sleep on it anymore. Actually, there's another profound internal loss we'd have to mourn: dreams. If we don't sleep, we don't dream. And dreams have always been this kind of hidden cinema of the mind, right? There are weird, private theaters where we subconsciously process grief or face our fears or find random inspiration. Without them, humanity as a whole might become vastly more productive, but we'd for sure become significantly less enchanted.
Meanwhile, the medical and scientific communities would be absolutely scrambling to figure this out. I mean, yes, traditional sleep disorders like insomnia would vanish, which is awesome, but what takes their place? How does an endless waking state affect our immune function, or how our tissues repair themselves? Do we age faster? Doctors would quickly realize that removing sleep didn't make us invincible. It just moved human vulnerabilities somewhere else. We'd probably see entirely new public health crises, like attention collapse or identity fatigue.
All of this points toward a dramatic, honestly somewhat dystopian cultural transformation. In a world where you could always be doing something, permanent presence basically becomes an addiction. Silence becomes incredibly rare, and quiet actually starts to look suspicious to other people. If you choose to just step away and do nothing, you'd be harshly judged as lazy or unambitious. The simple, beautiful value of stillness would become incredibly hard to defend.
We'd even have to completely reframe our concept of danger. You might normally think the biggest threat is, a masked thief in a dark alley. But in a society that literally never disconnects, the real villain shifts. The true danger becomes inescapable informational overload. We'd face constant, around-the-clock exposure to disinformation, scams, and psychological manipulation, simply because society's collective guard is never, ever down.
And the physical strain on our environments? It would be immense. We're talking soaring electricity demands and intense 24/7 noise pollution. Urban planners would have to completely reinvent cities just to keep people sane. We'd see a desperate need for the creation of artificial boundaries and engineered quiet zones just to stop our environments from becoming one emotionally suffocating loop of nonstop, buzzing activity.
Philosophically, the dangers are just as steep. Sleep is kind of a borderland. It separates our days and, in a way, it humbles us, reminding us that we aren't fully in control of everything. Removing it risks making humanity wildly overconfident. We'd lose that patience and grounded perspective that simple fatigue naturally teaches us. We'd become dangerously convinced that we can literally outrun limitation itself.
Now imagine the stakes for the first generation born into this sleepless world. They won't have any memory of the night as a compulsory pause. They're just going to inherit whatever values we decide to attach to this newly unlocked time. If we use it wisely, sure, they inherit an unbelievably advanced utopia. But if we use it greedily, they inherit a society that simply never, ever gives them peace.
To actually survive the resulting mental health crisis, society would have to invent rigorous new customs. The very word rest would need a totally new definition. It wouldn't be biology anymore. It would become a scheduled withdrawal from stimulation, a deliberate, artificial discipline that you have to enforce yourself. We'd have to create entirely new social rules for saying, I am not available right now, replacing the protective shutdown that biology used to do for us totally for free.
And I think this synthesizes everything we've been talking about into one really powerful realization. Sleep was never just a burden. It was never just a waste of time. It was a built-in mercy. It was the absolute vital mechanism that protected us from our own endless ambitions, essentially forcing us to put everything down, pause, reflect, and heal.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative final thought to chew on. If the night no longer forced us to stop, would we actually use that extra time to become wiser, kinder, and more creative? Basically, would we finally live more, or would we merely do more? It really challenges us to consider if the night was ever actually stealing time from us, or if it was simply teaching us how to value it. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gives you plenty to think about the next time your head hits the pillow.